Yes,
Yes.
we're
We're
live.
live. Sorry,
Hello. Yes.
almost. That took a little while,
Hmm.
approximately 29 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
apparently Be Live was having some issues, so had to
Yeah.
wait it out, but here we are.
Be Live is like blowing up, as in it's very popular now. So there was like
Yeah.
so many people logging in at once that it just crashed the system, it seems. So.
Which is understandable because it's great and it allows us to have chats with everyone together. So awesome. Thank you, Be
Hmm.
Live. And thank you for your work behind the scenes to get this to work again for us. So
Yay.
without further ado, let's launch into it. Let's go.
Pardon me. Oh my.
You okay?
I am very okay. Okay, so we are going to dive into relationships. We were supposed to have an hour to chat about this, but I guess it's more like 30 minutes. So we're just going to dive right
Did
into
right
it.
there. Yeah.
So, should we, I guess one important note is kind of when it comes to relationships, especially, well, any type of relationship, kind of when we experience the same type of relationship over and over and over again, it means that there's something for us to learn from that situation. So I know dealing with a lot of clients that have issues in relationships, if you go back and then you go back and you say, okay, well, what is there any similarities? You know what I'm trying to say,
I do.
between those people or those past relationships. And a lot of the times they don't even realize that
Yeah.
there's a lesson to learn.
And so there you go. You start going back and you start looking and you start picking out all of the things that are the same, and therein lies the beginning stages of healing the lesson, because you've done the work to start picking those out. You start to acknowledge that, number one, right? Half the
Mm.
battle. And then we start to go deeper and figure out, where is this coming from? Why do you continue to make these decisions over and over again? So this can look like dating the same person over and over again. Not literally the same person, but
Right.
the same type of person, the same kind of character traits, or, you have the same type of fights with this person that you had with every other relationship you've had. This can mean the same type of friendships where you don't have, or you do. I mean, sometimes they can be good, right? You know, but when we're looking at things that are not necessarily making you feel the greatest or them the greatest, these are the lessons. These are the lessons for us.
And it's funny that, like I said, when you have people go back through their different relationships, a lot of people don't even understand that until they go back and they go, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, there actually are a lot of similar. Help me.
That's not your word tonight. Similarities. There's a lot of similarities. And traits and repeated patterns of behavior, of communication, of the lack of communication, different ways that we have learned or not learned to have relationships. Which is a really, really interesting point.
I know, and that is crazy when you think about it, because we are never taught anything really about relationships. Like, we have like this idea of what relationships are supposed to be based on what we see in movies and TV and, our parents' relationship, which in some cases is an amazing experience for some, but some cases it's not. And like, we don't have any lessons on relationships, on, it's like romantic relationships. We don't really know when we get to that time when, we can start being involved with people romantically. It's like we're just thrown to the wolves in a sense.
Thrown to the wolves. I love that. And something I had mentioned before is that, you know, in a lot of kind of our research and asking people, you know, rate yourself on how do you rate your relationship with yourself? How do you rate your relationship with others, or sorry, your romantic relationships, and then your friendships, and then your work relationships, and consistently across the board, it's the relationship that actually scores the highest is our friendships, because you know, so when we think about that idea, we think about where we learn about romantic relationships, friendships, relationships in general, more often than not from our parents. As we know, from 0 to 12 are teaching us the majority of our patterns and our experiences, you know, teaching, guiding us, showing us what not to do, what to do, right and wrong, all these different things, or what they think, which is right there, what they think, because, you know, ultimately we all have our own unique set of values and priorities that apply to relationships and everything else in our lives. But so coming back to that, ultimately what ends up being taught at those ages more consistently is, you know, how to be a good friend, right? So if they're going through school, maybe they go through a period of being bullied or being a bully, or, you know, and then if you have a daughter, or, you know, anyone in between really, but like those, learning to process and work with your emotions as a child, you learn how to do that through your relationships. And as a child, you know, we don't have all these hormones and things that are confusing us and encouraging romantic relationships. So predominantly those relationships in the beginning are friendships. So people learn those skills a lot more intuitively at those ages, and just because of the nature of the beast, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I never thought of it that way, but that is a really good point for sure. Yeah. It's interesting. I'm like, I gotta sit there with that for a second.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and, you know, it's kind of but I mean, it's just, I guess, our genetic makeup, right? It's the way that we're kind of, it's our psychology. It's our part of our human behavior. And ultimately, when you really think about that period of time and what could be a really great thing for parents to do, is because on the other side, the lowest rated one on that scale is often my relationship with myself. So, you know,
the
most important. And so while you're learning all of these things, how to be a good friend, how to navigate your relationships and all these different things as a friendship. I think Sammy's coming in. Kitty. You know, you're learning to do these things, these friendships, because of your age bracket. You know, if parents can step in and teach children how to have a relationship with themselves at that age, you know, then moving into that, you know, here's the hormones, here's your romantic relationships, or not. Some people are completely asexual and don't have romantic relationships, but, you know, then having that foundation of a relationship with yourself can be helpful.
Yes. And see, that is like the only piece to the puzzle, right? It seems that it's like, and it's so shocking that, you know, when you get people to kind of do like a survey of relationships, that would be
the lowest
at the bottom, when that is what should be at the top, because that is what, I mean, the relationship with yourself is the most important. It's going to like kind of pave the way for every other relationship in your life. Do you agree with that?
I do. I really do agree with that. And it also helps with, because again, looking at surveys, looking at things that we've talked to people, real people that we know and are in our networks say, it's like the number, and then you look at any bigger research, and it's communication is the number one thing that people struggle with in their relationships. So, you know, logically thinking with that, if you have that foundation, if you have that base, relationship with yourself, it allows you to have a lot more flexibility in your ability to communicate, because you
Mm.
know your values, you know your priorities, you are capable. Maybe they change all the time, of course,
Mhm.
but you are capable of reflecting back in and picking that up and connecting with yourself. So then when you have those types of conversations with your significant other or friend or whoever, you're
Mm.
able to draw back in and pick that up and communicate effectively, moving forward.
Right. And this is the interesting thing. So like when people like begin a relationship, obviously there is like communication at that point, right? So there doesn't seem to
Yeah.
be an issue with the communication at that point. So why is it that when as people go along and as you go longer into a relationship, that sometimes just seems to almost disappear for some people, and it creates obviously a lot of
Yeah.
issues. But why do you think
Hmm.
that is? That just came to me right now. I just
Yeah, no, it's interesting, because I think that, I think a number of things happen. We have, which ties into actually something we'll end up talking about a little bit later, but it's those unspoken expectations that start to happen, right? You get so comfortable with someone, and that it's, people start to kind of forget how to do that, how to
yeah.
continue to do that. And they forget that, oh, okay, I'm comfortable and this person knows me. So
Mm,
they forget that you have to continue to
yeah,
keep talking, to keep getting it out, right? And not,
right.
you're not hiding.
And Ricky said, I think most times it's inauthentic communication in the beginning. And that is actually, I agree with that because that makes a lot of sense because when you first meet someone, like everyone's going through that kind of like honeymoon phase, right? Where everything
Yeah.
is just, you're not 100% honest about certain things. You're trying to put your best foot forward and you don't want to come across as like somebody that's not going to be attracted to this other person. So it's, that is so true. And I never really thought of it that way, but it really is a lot of inauthentic communication because we're not actually portraying ourselves as being this honest, true, you're not being your honest, true self in that very moment, really, are you?
Totally. And
Hmm.
not only that, are you trying to put that best foot forward and put that projected idea of who you want to identify as out there. And hopefully you think that person, some people want to act like what they think that person wants, or there's
Mm.
that, right? For sure.
Hmm.
But there's also people, keep walls up, right? They're not
Mm.
necessarily going to let somebody in and be really authentic or honest, because they're protecting themselves because
Mm.
of maybe some other past hurt, right? And, so what he said, we just put up with a bunch of crap that you wouldn't normally. Yeah, so there you go,
Like
right?
that we don't that is so true. That is so true. But isn't that interesting that like the major issue that we have like in relationship is like communication, and it's like almost doomed from the beginning in a sense for some people, right? Like I mean, I consider myself to be a relatively good communicator and just being honest about things that I like and don't like, and be just stepping into being very authentic.
Yeah,
Finally, that wasn't always the case,
right.
but yeah, that's it's just it's crazy. Like this is just all coming to me right now. Like it's just kind of like wow, like it's all just like a big like shit, like sham at the beginning. Like
Yeah, and I mean, because it's hormones, it's lust, it's that honeymoon phase. It's
mm,
like you said, you put up with a lot of stuff that maybe you wouldn't put up with later, especially when you start to things evolve in a relationship. You spend more time together, maybe you start to live together. You work towards a future with someone, and what that means is a whole lot of more commitment of your time, energy, your heart,
mm,
your everything,
mm,
finances, all of it, all of the stuff that makes up life. So you're not to set that up so that it's going to be happy and healthy for both of you. Yeah, you start kind of putting lines in the sand, right? So that
yeah,
starts to change. But
yeah,
that's a healthy thing, right? Like it's that where it's not a negative thing. Like,
mhm,
putting up with crap that you won't put up later. Like, don't think of it as a bad thing. That's a healthy thing, because you are honoring who you are and how you want to live your life, right?
Right,
So when you
exactly.
actually do that together as a team, then,
Hmm.
moving forward as a team,
Hmm.
everything's gonna, would you get in that, if you can get in that habit in the beginning of doing that, when
Hmm.
that honeymoon phase kind of wears off,
Yeah.
I mean, you're golden, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, when two people come together, it's not two perfect people.
Mm-mm.
It's two imperfect people because nobody's perfect. So, once that honeymoon stage wears off, here you are left with this imperfect person and imperfect person, right? And it's
Yep.
like you really have to be able to like be okay with the imperfections,
Yeah,
right? Like you have
of
to
course.
be, yeah, relationships.
Well, and I mean, it's also to accepting the humanness of everybody, right? Like,
Mm,
everybody is positive. Everything, every person, every situation in life is equal parts negative and positive all of the time. It's always balanced. So
mm,
for you can think of past partners and list like 20 negative things in their life, or
mm-hmm,
who they are or what they did to you, blah, 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 blah. But I bet you any money, if you really sat down and thought about it, you can list 20 other negative things that you did in that relationship. They're balanced.
mm,
They will
yeah.
always be balanced. They might not be the same thing, but you did 20 negative things too. There's always, but then again, on the flip side, there's 20 positive things that that person did and 20
Mm,
positive things that you did. So,
mm-hmm,
it's just figuring out the lessons within that. And then that's where the piece of knowing yourself comes in, because
mm,
what do you want to take forward in your life?
mm-hmm,
And what do you want to leave behind? Because as we
yeah.
move through different relationships, we talked about being young and having friendships, and then moving into, having more kind of fun romantic relationships as a teenager. And then maybe you have a couple serious ones in your later teens, early 20s,
Mm-hmm,
later 20s, have more serious relationships. And then maybe you end up with a person that you spend and the next 60 to 70 years with, right? So
mm,
it's all of those experiences that you take with you.
yeah,
Okay?
absolutely. And I think you need to have experiences with that because, I mean, I know some people haven't. Like, there's people that have been together like since high school, right? And it seems to
Right.
work fine. But in my case, it was, and talking to Miriam in the Inner Unicorn
Yeah, yeah,
video the other day, talking about, if we didn't go through all these really, really crappy, not so great, like short dish relationships, it
yeah,
wouldn't have set us up for where we are now with the person
absolutely. Yeah,
that we're with now.
yeah.
So that's interesting too.
Well, it's always this or something better, right? So, like, you're always going to move forward in some way, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're really just like not aware and you just,
Well, it's
you,
evolution, right? Like it's an evolution. That's what we're kind of here to do, right? So I guess yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
and then when you can finally, I think a big part of it is exactly what you just touched on, is the acceptance piece. So once you can start to accept your partner's flaws, your flaws,
Mm,
the world's flaws, everything, and you can
mm-hmm,
start to let that go and start to just be
mm-hmm,
and actually focus on what is happening in that present moment, who you are in that present moment. That's
mm-hmm,
when those really amazing relationships start to come into your life, that start to allow that being to
mm-hmm,
grow and expand. Right. So once
mm-hmm,
you let go of all of your negative stories, all of your past stuff, not letting go doesn't mean just forgetting that it happened. Letting go means letting go of the hurt and the attachment part, taking
mm-hmm,
lessons with you and bringing that forward. Right. Letting go of
mm-hmm.
that part can allow you the freedom in the room inside your energetic body to move forward with somebody in a really positive, more authentic way.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. What did Ricky say here? Julie and I were pretty authentic from the beginning, which I think was a product of not doing it in every previous relationship. It just doesn't work for the long run. Otherwise, I don't think 2 years in and you feel like you're dating a completely different person. if they're not okay with our imperfections, it's best to know from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And you're lucky you kind of met, I guess, when you did, in a sense, because,
Yeah.
you kind of went through all these different types of situations. And, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, that made me just think of what you just said, because thinking about when, when we met, when we did later in life, I was
Hmm.
28 and he was 32. So, we had all of those different short relationships and longer ones and shorter
Yeah.
ones, and, dated a bunch of people in between and had fun and lived our lives,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Yeah, I
so
love that. Lived your life. Hmm.
yeah, and like, we got stories to tell our grandkids about our lives. Like, and that's great. I would
Hmm.
never do it any other way. But for those people, like you mentioned, who have been together since they were 16 or something like that, which can work,
Hmm.
but you have to ask yourself, how does that work, right? And I think it's that ability to communicate really authentically, because you change a lot from in those periods of time. So from 16 to
Hmm.
20, 20 to 25, 20 to 35, 30, 30, like they are drastically different in terms of what you
Mm.
want, what you need from life, all of these
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
being like, it's almost like you got to go through like a mini divorce and break up every 5 years,
Yeah.
and like get to know that new person again,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise, you're not honoring yourself or that
Right.
other person.
Yeah. And see, Alan and I met later on in life too. And when you said, you lived your life, that's really, we've actually said that so many times, kind of explaining our relationship, is that we met up like later on in life. We've already had all these different types of experiences. And, yeah, it's crazy though, because like, we still met when we were older, but I still had like a lot of like personal growth to go through that I've gone through having been together. I mean, like we've been married for 7 years this June, so it's like there's been so much change
Mm-hmm.
even within that relationship. And when I think back to even like when we first met, it's like, wow, I still
How
felt
much?
so immature in a sense
Yeah.
because I was still like trying to figure me out,
Yeah.
I guess. And now that I put myself first, where before in other relationship stuff that wasn't the case,
Mm-hmm.
things just really start. It's like magical in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Like when you put yourself
Yeah.
first, and then becoming like a mom,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of forget that again,
Yeah.
that putting yourself first, but then it does come back. It
Oh,
does.
good. Good.
And and if you're able to recognize it, obviously, and I was, and it's really interesting how, and I like how you said that, it's kind of like you're meeting a new person again, and or like you're breaking up with someone, and then it's almost like that's what those stages are in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Like you know yourself, you think you know yourself, no, you don't know yourself.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, you
oh,
go through these massive periods of
yeah,
transition, right? Like you said,
yeah.
becoming a mom, becoming a mature adult woman, like, you know what I mean? Like these sort of things. And I think something really interesting that you just said, once I learned how to put myself first, which I didn't do in all of my other relationships,
Hmm.
which is not a selfish thing, but it's
Hmm.
like, because lots of people would interpret that way, right? But it's what it
Hmm.
is taking care of yourself enough to be
Hmm.
a whole person, to have a whole relationship. But once you make that decision and that shifts inside of you, which was the same thing for me, and I know it was the same thing for Ricky, was like you finally make that choice after, the most last previous relationship, and that shifts inside of you. But then that you can have, even though you've got so much more self growth to do and, expansion and all these things, and you will for the rest of your life. But once you decide that you are that foundation, that's when you
Hmm.
can invite someone in your life that you can grow with. Like you
Mm.
can independently keep growing and
Hmm.
not swallow each other up
Mm.
with codependency,
Ah,
right? Like
codependency.
that word. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're not able. to spend time apart.
Right.
Is usually
Or the other thing we were talking about the other day, when you sort of morph into the person that you're dating, like
oh my gosh,
so
yes.
so many of my friends do that. Like, all of a sudden they love video games, or all of a sudden they love sports and hockey
Yeah.
and like all this shit. And you're like, you never paid attention to any of that stuff before.
Yeah.
Why?
But there's the communication thing, right? Like there's the communication of you not being totally honest at the beginning. So, I mean, if you're really not able to be honest in the beginning, like what's going to happen when it's a couple years down the road?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah.
Like what happens then? So you see people with a lot of like crisis, like almost like a midlife crisis, like, oh, I wake up and I'm finally like, who am I?
Yeah.
Right?
And then you have a whole other bunch of shit that you got to deal with, like resentment and blame, because you're like, well, how come you get resentful, like you never do what I want to do, or like, why there's just all this stuff that you then have to go through. And then if your relationship makes it out of that, like, good on you, because it takes a lot of work to be able to move through that, right?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
That's what you said earlier is so important, is that spending time alone, right?
Honestly, yeah. And so Julie and I had, or Julie had sent me an article, and then there was another article within that article that you could refer to, and they're so good. And I can again put the links to them above the video when we're done. But they were written by Mark Manson, and one of them was relationship habits we think are toxic, and then toxic relationship habits most people think are normal. Mm-hmm. And the ones that I picked 3. There was actually 6 in each one. So I picked 3, and relationship habits that we think are toxic, but are actually quite normal. And one of them is spending time apart.
Yeah.
And like, this is a big one for me. Like I love to be around people. I love to be around my family. I enjoy being around friends and things like that. But man, I need that time to be like alone.
and to be alone, because you continue to be that. Okay, so we talked about how, yeah, sure, there's a little bit of that like haziness in the beginning, but once you start to really be yourself, that's who your partner ends up falling in love with, right? Is who you really are. So if you forget that, and you don't spend that time alone to keep filling that up, to continue to feed your soul.
And that's what it does. I'm glad you said that. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Yeah, that's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Because if I didn't spend that time alone, I wouldn't have the insights that I have now. Yeah. Because that's when they come.
Yeah.
It's just spending that time alone. So it could be meditation, it could be journaling, it could just be like staring up at the sky. Like it's just that's when I really connect with myself and I know what I need. And it's like I wouldn't get that if you.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So people think that that's toxic to spend time apart, but it isn't.
And you need it, because otherwise you become a big flat pancake, and you're just, that's all I can think of was a big pancake. Like, it's like, here's the like feeding of the soul, and it just goes pancake. No oomph, no honest vibration, no authenticity. It's just pancake. And I mean, like, sure, pancakes are good for a minute, but then you eat like 5 of them and you're over it. So, it's just, you gotta keep full, throw some strawberries on those pancakes, some blueberries, like some whipped cream, like get creative. All right, I'm just gonna stop. But
I'm sorry. It's because I love pancakes so much.
You had one on your Mother's Day. Yes.
Yes, and I love you so much. So like hearing you talk about pancakes is just like the best thing ever.
2 star seeds in a pod. I told you.
They really are. We really,
So
really.
I know. So coming back to the subject here, a big part of that, so being okay with allowing your partner to have time alone, being okay with allowing them to be authentic, being okay with allowing them to communicate with you, even though sometimes it's hard and you feel icky for a few minutes, but trust me, it's way worth it than building up all of those years of resentment and not talking about it and not being honest and vocal, because then crazy things happen. People go through midlife crisis. People cheat on the partners, all of these things, which could have been avoided by just slowing down and knowing yourself and having the hard conversation, which ultimately is not as hard as the one you have to have after all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, and it just all boils down to the relationship with yourself, really. Like, how is that?
Yeah.
You know, people need to become really honest about that, you know, and start asking themselves questions about themselves.
Magic word, the ask word, the ask word. Ask for what you want. Ask for what you need. Learn what those are, and then ask for them.
Yeah, totally.
What at the same time as giving them. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're at 9:00. So we'll skip to the end because we missed a whole half an hour here. So he kind of talked about, you know, what is our most, if you had to give a piece of advice and had to give, you know, kind of a mantra or whatever, you know, something to kind of go from. What is it?
The best piece of relationship advice that I could give is advice that Alan actually mentioned at the beginning of our relationship. And it is to never go to bed angry. And not that we fight a lot or anything like that, but obviously you're in a relationship, we've been married for 7 years, we are different people, we do, like, you know, bicker about little things, and our rule in the house is just to not go to bed angry.
Yeah.
And it is actually, and it just, you know, we allow ourselves to feel emotion at that time, but then we let it go.
Yeah.
And that really is the best piece of relationship advice that I can come up with. So what about you?
I love it. I'm also going to steal for my partner.
Your partner.
My partner. And I really think that it's been a big one for us, and it was a good aha moment for us. But to be humble. To be humble and accept the fact that sometimes you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You don't know how to have a perfect relationship, because newsflash, nobody does. And that, you know, sometimes it's going to take a little bit of work to figure it out. And so slow down, take a humble pill, and just be honest about how you feel, about what's going on.
I know.
Right?
Seriously, though, like, that would just end so much suffering.
Yeah. The defensiveness, the I'm right, you're wrong. Cut it out. Slow down. What's really happening here? Be humble, be responsible, which, again, I know you guys, a couple weeks ago, where he did his Wednesday night session on the 5 P's of healthy relationships. And again, like, I really definitely encourage people to go back and listen to that, take some notes, because it was a great video, and there's a lot of good points in there, and good strategies, those 5 B's, to take to your life and apply it to everything. And you will see results. You will see your relationships get easier.
Yeah.
So that would be my relationship advice.
That's beautiful. And while you were talking about that, I pulled this.
Ooh. Oh, yes. Yes.
See only love. Look past the seeming errors, mistakes, and misunderstandings and see only the love within each person, including yourself. Your resolute focus upon the love that underlies every situation brings about healing in undreamed of ways.
No, you just can't make this stuff up. I tell you.
I know.
Awesome.
I'm like tuned in here, girl.
Yeah, I told you, you've been glowing for the past couple of days.
Yeah.
Watch out, guys. Watch out. Deelle's coming in big and strong.
Big and strong. And blow it up.
No pancake over there.
And I just have to, of course, read what's in the book. I always have to read what's in the book because there's always just some little tidbit of information in this stuff. So it says the angels give you this card as a reminder to see yourself, others, and every situation through their eyes. When you focus on love, anything that's unloving falls away. It's like turning on what? It's like turning on a light to diminish the previous darkness. Call upon your angels whenever you need help to elevate your vision to a more loving vantage point. Look past the personalities and egos of others and see the angel within them. Forgive, release anger, hurt, or judgment to the angels. Affirm what you desire instead of what you fear. Oh,
amazing.
What?
So there's your relationship advice from the angels. And I mean, it couldn't be more perfect.
Seriously, though. See only love. Whoops.
Awesome.
See?
Love
How cute
it.
Is that? I
It's
know,
very
so sweet.
Oh, the little heart.
I know. There's like cute. I love looking. Okay, anyone that does like angel card readings and stuff, always look at the picture too, because there's always some hidden little awesome gem in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
she does that on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, her and her creators do. That's a team. That's a team effort there. The Doreen Virtue team. Right?
Love.
Awesome.
Love. So yeah. So that's about it, I guess, right?
Thanks for hanging in with us, guys, and joining in late and sticking around for a couple extra minutes.
Yeah, thanks. We had the technical difficulties all straightened away. Bravo, Be Live.
Right?
TV. Yeah.
And if you're interested, Deelle will post those couple articles there. Mark Manson is definitely not an author for everyone. He's got a pretty specific style, but if you're looking for some like really practical, no fluffy, none of that language in there, he's your guy. He's your guy.
Oh, Deb says, see only love. Love that. Seeing faults, it's all about our own insecurities. When you focus on the positive, it comes back and it feeds itself. How great would it be if we met and focused on love? Amen, sister.
Oh, yeah.
Deb, you know what's up. Sorry I missed most of this night. That's okay.
We did too, so fine.
It's fine. You got the angel card reading. That basically like tied up every single thing that we said. Didn't it?
It did. And, again, like check out those articles, listen to Ricky's video again, the 5 Bs. I mean, it's all right there. And we talked about some kind of cool examples. So if you got a half an hour, check out the replay.
Awesome.
All
right, honey. See you later, alligator.
Bye. In a while, crocodile.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night. See ya.
Bye.